This is the Volleyball Coaching Wizards Podcast, covering everything coaching, motivated and inspired by interviews and conversations with some of the world's great volleyball coaches. To learn more about the project, visit volleyballcoachingwizards.com. Now here are your hosts, John Foreman and Mark Lebedew.
Hey, welcome to episode 8 of the podcast. We decided for this episode to go with a clip from Giovanni Guidetti, who's currently the head coach of the Dutch women's national team and also the Turkish club team Vakifbank. In it, he talks about how he approaches managing the team and also more broadly the organization around the team, and looking at dealing with, as part of the overall chemistry and support and just cohesiveness of the whole organization from the bottom to the top, a way of treating people and giving them buy-in and respect and making them feel an important part of the whole process. We obviously, as we usually do, wander along on different paths related to that, but at its core, what we're talking about is how to treat people that are part of the universe that surrounds you and your team. So I hope you get something out of it. If not, we had a few laughs along the way.
At the end, a team, have to become a team to perform. And how you do that, I think the first very, 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 very important part that I try to put in my head always, every day, is that the less important player of the team is the one that have to have the most attention from me. Mm-hmm. This is one of kind of rule that I have in my job, and with the player, with the people in the gym. So the man that is in Vakifbank is there only to clean the gym and put the net on. It's the first one I say hi in the morning, and the last I say bye bye in the night, and I try to spend. I mean, the language sometimes is complicated, but I try to give really a lot of attention to him, and this because he's really the less important. Mm-hmm. And the same is with the players. So as much as I care about the young player of the team, the number 12, 13, 14 in the team, the match, the team will be united. Mm-hmm. Because this player, they will be part of the team. They will feel the importance from the coach, and so they will give everything to the stars to perform well. And so and we start to become all together. We start to become, me helping the young, that what they want to help the stars, and the stars, of course, belong to me because I'm the one that gives them the instruction, and we are starting to become all together with the man that is putting the net and cleaning the gym, and together with every member of the staff that take every time a great consideration from me. Mm-hmm. And it's just one thing. So when you want to make one thing, you just have to put everything together with the same, and everybody have to have the same importance. Mm-hmm. This, there are 1,000 examples about this, and the example that I use more is that, the one of the orchestra. There is one guy that is just using the triangle. Yeah. And he's playing this triangle once every 30 minutes, but he has to do that with the same passion that the main violin is playing the solo all the night. And this is the team. There is no other exception.
Yeah, I really like that little riff from Giovanni, because to be honest, I've been studying this kind of stuff for a long time and building teams, and I haven't studied psychology specifically, but it's a kind of way that I've never specifically heard about paying the most attention to the least important people and giving them the confidence to fight for the group. And the more I think about it, the more it seems like a really interesting way to go about things.
Yeah, I mean, I think I had a very similar sort of reaction when I heard it myself. As you start kind of looking at how you're handling your own team, and to Giovanni's point, more broadly, how you're handling your whole program, for lack of a better word, I suppose, in terms of finding ways of making sure that everybody feels like they have a role and they're part of the situation and involved and connected and appreciated. I mean, it certainly makes a lot of sense from a team perspective, because it's very easy for the 12th player or the 10th player or any player who's not getting a lot of playing time, for that matter, to feel disconnected. And which actually makes me think about something that I wrote about just the other day in the blog, in terms of what happens during timeouts and matches where, you bring the starting team in for the timeout, maybe, the libero or whoever's sitting on the bench waiting to go in, but then you've got 4 players or however many other players, running sprints or doing whatever at the end of the bench off the court, and they're not involved. And it just kind of all ties together. It's like, well, how come, you've got these 4 players or 6 players or however many who aren't in the huddle with the timeout? You need to keep them connected and involved in the match, just as you need to keep your 12th player or 10th player or whatever involved in the program overall and what you're trying to do. Mm-hmm. So I think, it sparked a few different thoughts in my head as well.
Yeah, the one that you most commonly hear maybe is that the first thing that you have to do is get your top players on board, and then with your top players and your leaders in the program, so to speak, then the rest of the guys follow, and the bottom end approach, can you call it that? Is a different way to go about it, but different guys talk about how to have the involvement from those players, and Vital talked about it a lot also with having roles and finding something that every player can do and giving them the responsibility to do it in the match. And perhaps that's a similar thing, if not put quite as elegantly as Giovanni.
Right. And there may be a bit of a gender difference here, because Giovanni obviously is coaching primarily women.
Yeah.
And a lot of you got to get the team leaders tied in is probably especially important on the men's side, where this is personal view, but I feel like the internal leadership dynamic in the team for men is much more hierarchical, and as a result is more important in terms of, okay, you need the guy or the guys that are your team leaders to be bought into what you're doing. Absolutely. Yeah. Because everybody else is looking at them. I think on a women's team, the leadership dynamic is quite different.
Yeah.
So it's important for the women to feel connected with each other as team. As Kathy DeBoer said in one of her books, men battle to bond, women bond to battle, and it's pretty appropriate. And so I think potentially a bit of what Giovanni's talking about here is reflective of that, in that in order for a women's team to really be cohesive, everybody needs to feel connected. And getting those, the bottom end of the roster players to feel like they are connected is extremely important to the overall chemistry.
It's interesting when you start to talk about the gender differences that may or may not exist, because I have primarily, if not exclusively, coached men, and the things that you talk about in that way about the women's team, it's not really different from men. Maybe the only thing is that men deal with the lack of bonds a little bit better. I don't really know the answer to that, but as I said, Vital is essentially talking about, or something at the very least very similar, and it makes a really huge difference if the the 9, 10, 11, 12 or the 11, 12 guys are engaged in some way. At the very least, it makes the training environment a little bit better. And
I absolutely agree. Totally agree.
Yeah. But I've picked up a lot of things from the interviews that I've done and put into my daily work, and I have to admit that it's one of the 3 or 4 things that I think about nearly every day is how then to engage and to show those guys that they're important. And I guess we'll see in the course of the next few months how that goes for me.
Yeah, true. I mean, I'm in the same situation. I've got certain players in the squad who, at this point, don't look like they're going to get much in the way of playing time.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to keep in mind, okay, how can I keep them engaged in terms of continuing to progress in their development as players, continuing to feel like they're an important part of the team. So I had one player who, had a little bit of an issue early on, who felt like she was only here to make the numbers.
Mm-hmm.
Which is not the case at all. Okay, she's not where she needs to be to really challenge to be a starter, and we've talked about where that needs to come and in what role. But it's one of those things where I'm alerted to, okay, I need to make sure I'm very, very specific with her in terms of what's happening here, and it wasn't just about the volleyball. There was other off-court stuff going on too. But it's that same sort of thing, and I've got another one who kind of knows her role, and she's a younger player, and she understands that she's an apprentice, and she's fine with that. But bringing back what Vital talked about in terms of not just keeping the bottom end of the guys engaged, but also playing them. One of the things that I've really kind of taken on board was keeping everybody involved come match day, and trying to use everybody, even every single set if I can, depending on how the circumstances fall out. But I've been making a conscious effort of making sure I find ways of getting my non-starters onto the court every set if possible, so that they can, in a position where they can be successful, a defensive specialist, serving specialist, whatever the case may be.
I was actually preparing to talk about exactly that point from Vital, because I'd worked a lot in the last years with giving players whole matches. So I had a strong team, and we had a strong group, so that we had the opportunity that the guys who weren't the starters, in inverted commas, could play a whole match. And I focused my season management on game time in that context, so that everybody played more or less 1 in 4 matches somehow, 1 in 4, 1 in 5. And so I asked Vital specifically that question: is it better to play a whole match once a month, or to play a few points in every match? And his answer was very unequivocal, that it's better to play a little bit in every match. And that's one of the other points that from this process that I've been thinking a lot about.
Yeah. Well, and to be fair though, in your situation at Berlin, where it was basically 2 teams at the top and a lot of everybody else, fighting for third through whatever, you had more opportunity to get the non-starters, the non-top starters, in for a full match, sporadically.
Oh, it's definitely an unusual situation. It's not a common situation.
Yeah. In my case, at least for, I think, until February, I can actually let my non-starters play in the second team. So they can actually get match time, full matches, as that coach obviously, decides to use them. Because he's got a very young squad, and he's already brought my players in a couple of times to kind of bolster that group and provide a bit of stability and backbone. So that's good for them. I mean, they still train with us full time, but they get actual playing time all the way around instead of just as a substitute.
Yeah, it really is an interesting dynamic, and I'm going to have to think more about it this season because we have no playoffs. So one of the things in Berlin that allowed the rotation inside the squad was that if we could afford to lose a set and lose a couple of sets because we could make up for things later in the season or even in the playoffs, and in a straight league situation where every set is potentially important, that management issue is going to have to be different.
Yeah, and while we do have a playoff situation here in Sweden, the first half of the season goes toward qualifications for Grand Prix, which takes place in January, and only the top 4 teams in the league qualify. So for right now, and while I'm still learning, where every team is kind of at, relatively speaking, there isn't much opportunity to take a few chances, and play somebody all the way around, just because we need to be getting the results every week, or twice a week in some cases. Cycling back on Giovanni and going bigger, because he obviously brings in the story about talking with the guy who sets up the net and sweeps the floors and all that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's, having worked in the U.S. collegiate system, where obviously there's a lot of other people involved in an athletic program than just the coaches and the players, and you've got administrators and you've got support staff and everything like that. And here in Sweden, it's mostly a volunteer sort of situation outside of the team itself. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can definitely see how being connected with the people that basically help you do your job can be so important.
I agree 100%, and Giovanni's exact example was the guy who puts the net up. But in some of the clubs, in bigger clubs, that can be a volunteer who literally is the person who puts the net up and collects the balls. I remember being in Trento once for a friendly match, and there were 4 or 5 guys just collecting balls, and I was involved with court management for a friendly match. So. But one of the most important guys in a lot of places is I don't even really know the English word for it. It's the Hallenmeister in German. Is the manager of the gym, or not right. Even the manager, the guy who looks after the gym, because over the course of a season there are just dozens of tiny little things where you need help, where the net needs to be fixed, or you want to use this piece of equipment from another part of the gym, and if you're offside with that guy somehow, he can really make your life miserable. And it's really good if you can get in with him and show him that he's an important member of the process, if not necessarily the team. And if you make friends with that guy, it's always a really positive thing.
Yeah, I mean, thinking about it from my experience in the States, yeah, you've got the janitors who help set up and take down or clean the facility.
Yeah.
You've got whoever's responsible for scheduling and booking the facility.
Yeah.
You've got the other coaches who might be sharing the facility with you. In our case, basketball. Trying to work out who's got the gym when. You've got people in admissions potentially, who might be involved in deciding who you can get and who you can't get.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously the bosses in the athletic department, the people who book your travel arrangements, what hotels you stay in and how you get there. And there's so many pieces to all of this stuff that most people don't even think about, especially young coaches who haven't who maybe have only coached kind of juniors level or whatever and haven't had to deal with a lot of the administrative stuff, is I think a lot of young coaches are just kind of blown away with all the administration and all the politics that happens behind the scenes. It has nothing to do with what's going on the volleyball court day to day.
Yeah, there's every so often you'll come across the coach who says, "Yeah, I don't want to be interested in that stuff. I just want to coach." And you have to say to that guy, "Actually, it's all coaching." So every conversation that you have with everybody really involved with the team is coaching in some way, and you also have to coach the people in the club sometimes. And this is, I don't know if it came up in Vital's interview, but I know that this is a big part of his work is coaching the spectators, the club, the managing the expectations. What do we have in this situation, and always being realistic yet ambitious, or realistic and optimistic, and I know this is something that he invests a lot of time in, and I think has been a big part of the success that he's had, although not perhaps shown up in the events of the last week.
I mean, I can appreciate that, because just even with the club here in Sweden, there's elements of, okay, there are things that we can do better, and dealing with obviously everything's a volunteer around the team, and most of the structure of the club is youth oriented. But the idea of, okay, these are the sorts of things that we want to do, and what are your objectives, for this program, for this team, for the club? What can we do? How can we, act in the best possible way, and drive the performance on the court, and take advantage of certain things that are going on. And if you as the head coach are not engaged with what's going on around you, you're going to miss something. You're going to lose an opportunity. Something may happen behind the scenes that you're not aware of that could potentially cost you your job.
I wasn't going to be that direct. I was going to say something like affects your work, but yes, all of these. That's a valid point.
Yeah, well, and there's reasons why sometimes coaching tenures are not very long.
Yes, and it's very often not what one would call the direct coaching part of it.
True.
Goes back to my advice to young coaches that maybe not in my interview, but I've definitely written about on the blog, is that in every match, always take all your timeouts and make all your substitutions. Then it's never your fault.
Except in the case of when you call, and this is something that I wrote about recently, don't call a timeout when you're 10 points down and it's 10 point against. That's just being a jackass.
There was one situation in World Championships last year, an event where they were using a review, the video challenge, and the coach in question used both of his video challenges when I think the score was 12-22 and 14-23 or something. He used, and both of them were bad challenges, so he lost them.
Yeah,
and
I think I actually remember that.
Yeah, it was the Italian team, and the coach was Mauro Baruto, and it was a really interesting one, because the first thing I thought was exactly that. It's just delaying the inevitable, just deliberately obstructive, has no purpose, and as so often happens, once you're away from the moment and have a chance to think about it. I remembered in my different times in my coaching career where we've been losing a set, the set was lost. So I will, in the last 10 points of the match will make all of my substitutions. So, but one at a time, so that for maximum disruption of the game, maximum disruption of momentum, so that whatever good feelings the other team has, they've lost them before the start of the next set.
Yeah, but arguably that's a prolonged strategy that doesn't take place at one moment in time. You're doing it over a sequence of points.
The timeout at set point is maybe the one just for your manager, just the one that I did everything that I could. You're right.
Yeah.
Or just to
I'm just completely oblivious to the score.
Sorry?
Or I'm oblivious to the score. I looked up and went, oh crap, I need to call timeout.
So you mean a process-oriented coach? Every point is exactly equal.
All right. Anything else that is worth talking about from Giovanni's interview?
The other big note, sort of asterisk note that I had from Giovanni was about passion, and I've said this to a couple of people before, that sometimes non-English speakers have a way of expressing themselves in English that's more elegant, even if it's maybe not exactly correct English.
Mm-hmm.
And or maybe it's just the accent. I don't know, but it's the point that he made a couple of times, and specifically once he made the statement that a volleyball coach cannot even be average without passion, and I think this is it's something that resonates a little bit, and I'm sure that we can hear it in the discussions with all of the coaches in this project. Is all of them have a passion for the game, a passion for learning, but really, just there's a really deep-seated love of volleyball, I think, in all of the people that we talked about, and I quickly think to Anders Christensen, who we'll talk about another time, but with him was also a really similar idea, and maybe it's early in the project to say for sure, but maybe that's the overarching theme that we need to have, that we have.
Yeah, well, I think it's hard to argue against that, because if you're coaching for decades, like somebody like Anders has done, there needs to be something that keeps you engaged. And if, aside from money, because I could certainly think of coaches who maybe coached high school sports, did it for the paycheck and didn't really do it, because they were passionate about whatever sport. They just took what was assigned to them. But if you're somebody who's successful over time, then that implies that you're investing of yourself. And if you're investing of yourself, then there must be something driving that. And passion strikes me as the most appropriate term. I mean, I know in my case that I've had people tell me that they could definitely see or hear or feel whatever the passion that I feel for it when I'm communicating stuff about volleyball with them. So it's one of those things that, we all go through those periods where we doubt and question, and what are we doing, and is all this suffering worth it and all that. But then when somebody points it out, look, you clearly love this, even though sometimes it feels like it's killing you, you kind of get it.
Yep. So treat the least important people with the most respect and spend the most time with them, and have a great amount of passion.
Exactly.
There's Giovanni's hour and a half condensed into 2 sound bites.
Although he said it more poetically.
Absolutely.
Thanks for listening. We hope you enjoyed this episode. For show notes and more, visit volleyballcoachingwizards.com/podcast. Got an idea for a future episode or want to ask a question? Send an email to podcast@volleyballcoachingwizards.com.